Good to be here this morning. Thanks for having me. January's been a really long year, hasn't it? Yeah. This is the last day. If our church fast is over, if you guys have been fasting along with us. So I'm always excited when a fast is over. My husband and I decided to fast sugar, amongst other things, and so we have been resentfully eating raisins for about a month now. We made our Ted's Escondido server very uncomfortable when she offered us sopapillas, and we were like, we can't have that because we're fasting, because our bodies are temples. She didn't care. I'm always the best faster who ever fasted the first day. I'm all in, I'm really excited, and then around day 2, day 3, when that sugar hangover hits, I start saying things like, why would God want me to be this unhappy? Especially during a pandemic. And then I always ask myself, what's the point of this? And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But we stuck to the fast most days simply because our children were policing us. They knew that we were fasting, and so if they saw us with the Chick-fil-A or the white bread, they would remind us, you're fasting right now. So if you need help sticking to your fast, I encourage you to get to know the Thompson children, and they're going to help hold you accountable. They'll be your little accountability buddy there. But, you know, I'm more spiritual and my pants fit better because of their diligence, so I'm very excited. Pastor Jay asked Aaron, Callie, and I to share about women of faith in the Bible. Aaron will be talking about Abigail next week, and then Callie's going to follow up with Ruth on Valentine's Day, which is going to be really special. It's a big deal when a woman's story is told in the Bible, simply because it's not done very much. In the Bible, only 49 women are named. There are 1,770 men named in the Bible. So I pay attention when a woman's story is told simply because it's not done very much. There's only 2 books in the Bible named after women, Esther and Ruth. We all chose women from the Old Testament for this series, and I have to confess that the Old Testament is my least favorite testament, mainly because I don't understand it very much. And I hope that you're following along. Our church is reading the Old Testament all the way through, and it's amazing how many brilliant people we have in this church that are giving background, that are giving context, and so it's helping me understand it a little bit better, because a lot of the histories are hard to understand. I have a hard time understanding the way women were treated, the Jesus I know in some of those stories that we read. But this series and doing this together as a church, not only do I feel more connected to you guys, I'm learning a lot. So I want to dive into Esther this morning because I've always been fascinated with the little Jewish queen who saved a nation. Here's a basic historical background of what was happening during the time of Esther, and if you would like more information, email, not me, email Jimmy Doyle. I'm sorry, Jimmy, I didn't ask permission. So the setting of Esther is in the Persian Empire around 483 BC. Scholars think that Mordecai was the author. The events that took place in this book, they span over an entire decade, and this is the only book in the Bible that doesn't actually name God. But we see his providence, and we see the way that he saved his people, so that's why a lot of scholars believe it was included in the canon. And if you've ever heard of the Festival of Purim, have you guys ever heard of that? It is supposed to be it's supposed to be a great time. So I would like to be invited. All I'm going to do after the pandemic is go to parties. And I will bring my covered dish because I'm a good Methodist. So speaking of celebration and parties, the story of Esther opens with a huge party that King Xerxes is throwing. It's a 6-month show and tell of his kingdom. Look at my gold couches. Look at my nice white and blue linens. Nothing here is from IKEA. So he just spends 6 months showing off his kingdom, as you do. And then he follows it up with a 7-day banquet. And I want to read what they said. It says that the king, quote, commanded each guest to be served wine with no restriction. So this is the kind of party that we're talking about right now. The Persians are here to party. They're here to have a good time. Apparently, they don't have work in the morning. So we are introduced to his queen, Queen Vashti, at this point, and she was having her own ladies' party because this is what guys and gals do ever since elementary school on up. The guys congregate over here, The ladies congregate over here, and we just talk about each other. That's what we do. So this is what's happening. The guys are enjoying their Hot Pockets and their Doritos, and the ladies are enjoying some nice bonbons, probably a very well laid out charcuterie board. And it says that King Xerxes was in high spirits with wine. And I want to stop for a minute and ask, do we make good decisions if this is our condition? Not us, other people. So he's in high spirits with wine. The wine is flowing, and he has a big idea. He summons Queen Vashti, and he asks her to come display herself, all of herself, in a very humiliating way. This is not a model on a catwalk situation. What he's asking her to do would be mortifying to her. It would be beneath her as the queen. And this is what he wants her to do. He was not asking in any way to honor her. So she does something next that would be illegal. So if you look at chapter 1, verse 12, Queen Vashti refused. Queen Vashti refused. This was the only thing that we know she said in the whole book. No. No. I've heard all of my life that this was her being disrespectful, that this was her making some kind of a power play. But if you study the history of women's rights at that time, women had about as much rights as the cattle did. And so I don't think it was a power play. I think it was a queen saying no to a drunk king and a mortifying request. She said what she said. And after she refused, the king was furious. He was max offended, he was probably humiliated, and so he consulted his wise men about what to do. And I would like to introduce you guys to the royal council. And I'm going to be referring to them from now on as the groomsmen. And this is why. For 13 years, I was a wedding planner, and I know for sure that the groomsmen never make wise decisions as a whole. Jerry Seinfeld said, "They all act alike, so let's all dress them alike." In 13 years of doing this, I've pulled a groomsman off of a fire escape because he wanted to go up to the roof and walk around right before a wedding. My sister and I have pulled groomsmen several times out of a restaurant because they were tired of being at the wedding they were supposed to be at. They usually forget the ring. My sister reminded me that they usually forget the ring, so my wedding band has been used in many, many weddings because they forget. I might be married to a lot of people I don't know. My bad, babe. Once I was pregnant at the time, and one of the groomsmen would not stop bothering me. He was just in his feelings about a bunch of different things, and so I would pretend to go into labor every time I would see him coming. I'd be all, "Oh, I can't talk to you right now." And Amy just let me do it because he was that annoying. And then one time I was 9 months pregnant, and one of them jumped off of a stage, and he was doing a stunt. They like to do stunts. I don't know why groomsmen do this, but they love to do stunts in their tuxedo. I don't know if they feel like Bond, but they're up there, he does a stunt, he falls on me, he knocks me to the ground and my big belly, and he knocks the breath out of me. And while I'm trying to compose myself and get myself back together, he stands over me and he says, "Can I give you a shoulder rub or something? My bad." So this is groomsmen. This is what they do. So the royal council, from now on, for the rest of my Esther story, they are the groomsmen. You're welcome. So their brilliant plan was to strip Queen Vashti of her title. She could not be the king anymore because she was disrespectful, and just in case any of the ladies of the kingdom get an idea, we're going to just make a quick decree saying that no woman is allowed to be disrespectful to her husband. We're going to make an official decree because we just can't have ladies having ideas like this. So they do that as well. And we don't actually know what happens to Queen Vashti at this point. We don't know if she was executed. We don't know if she was demoted to the harem. The text really isn't clear, but we don't hear from her again. But when we meet up with King Xerxes, it says that his fury subsided and he remembered Vashti. And the way that it's written in the text indicates that he was missing her. Now that he was not mad and offended anymore, he realized maybe he had done something dumb. I don't know. It's kind of what it looks like. So the groomsmen have another brilliant idea. We don't want you to feel the consequences of your actions, so we've got an idea. We're going to gather up all the beautiful young women, all the single ladies. All the single ladies. First service didn't know what that was. So I'm glad that some of you did. It's fine, I was entertaining myself. We're going to gather them all up, and you get to pick your favorite. Xerxes. These guys are great. It's a great time to be a woman, right? In this particular story. And the first time I heard this story, it was by a very well-meaning Sunday school teacher. She said, King Xerxes had a beauty pageant. Have you guys ever heard that was what it was? It was a beauty pageant. And nobody was more excited about a beauty pageant than young Sara McCord, because all I wanted was to wear a sequin dress and a crown and a sash. So I was all in on this story. Give me a beauty pageant. I don't have a talent, but I want to be in the sparkly dress. And then I found out that they did 12 months of beauty treatments. If you know me at all, you know how that blessed my heart. Oh, yes, Lord. Let me be a spa missionary for you. But I think sometimes that the Sunday school version that we're taught, the flannel board version, it's not the whole story. So let's look at the text. This is actually what's happening. Esther 2:8. When the king's command and decree had been proclaimed, many young women were brought. Esther also was taken. So this is not a voluntary Miss Persia pageant. These words indicate that these young ladies had no choice. They were taken from their homes, and they got their 12 months of beauty treatments, and then they had a forced audition with the king. If they weren't chosen to be queen, they were booted to the harem. So it's really the worst runner-up prize that you could possibly have. And this is where we meet Esther. She was a young Jewish woman taken to the harem, and during her 12 months of beauty and purification treatments, we find out two things about her. One, she wins favor in the sight of all that saw her, and two, she listens to her counsel. She listens to her cousin Mordecai, who raised her, and by all accounts, he was a very wise man, and she listens to him when he tells her to do something. Now, when it's her turn to go to King Xerxes, she wins his favor, he loves her the most, and so he makes her the next queen. I'd like to next introduce you to our resident bad guy, because every good story has to have a bad guy. His name is Hayman, and for the sake of time, I'm going to give you just a brief synopsis. He's second in command, he loves himself the most, and he also has his own groups of groomsmen that give him really bad advice. And secondly, he gets really offended when Mordecai won't bow to him. And so he passive-aggressively posts about him on social media, as you do, and then he makes a decree. He takes the king's signet ring and makes a decree that not only Mordecai, but all of his people are to be slaughtered. So a super chill response, right, to not getting a little curtsy. And at this point, our friend King Xerxes has no idea what's going on. And if you read this story, I really think that King Xerxes is just... No, I'm going to get to that in a minute. So Mordecai has advised Esther not to reveal who she is. And so King Xerxes has no idea that he's just sentenced his bride to die. But when Mordecai found out about the order, he tore his clothes, he sat in ashes, he grieved. This is how they grieved back then. It was very intense. And then he begged Queen Esther to go before the king and intercede and plead for her people's lives. Now, this is a bigger deal than it sounds like. At any point, we can go to our spouse and say, we're going to talk about something. But back then, that was illegal to go before the king. It was punishable by death. And so it was a big deal. And we saw how well that went for Vashti when she went against the king. So she tells Mordecai, I haven't been called in 30 days. I haven't been called. There's nothing I can do. And so this is where she's at. So from her hesitation comes one of the most beautiful lines of Scripture. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for, all together now, you guys are amazing, such a time as this. And at this point, something shifts in Esther. She agrees, she says she'll do this, and she gets to the point in her heart that she's resolute, and she says, if I die, I die. Now notice that before she goes before the king, she does some holy preparation. She fasts, and she asks her people to fast with her. So to my earlier question about what's the point of fasting, it's not only an Old Testament tradition, but it's something that the New Testament asks us as believers to do. It says, when you fast, when you pray, God sees. Jesus himself said, this kind of darkness can only be driven out by prayer and fasting. There's something powerful that happens when we do these practices. So we don't know if the story would have been different had she not prepared in this way, but what we do know is she went before the king, she was received with favor and welcome, and King Xerxes asks her, what do you wish? And it will be given to you. I just think that's a good thing for all husbands to say. What do you wish? It will be given to you. Just put it on a Post-it. Esther invites him and Hayman for a banquet. She starts with food. This is the way to a man's heart. It's not any more complicated than that. I think we've overcomplicated it. So he goes to the first banquet with Hayman, and they have food, and he says, I'll give you anything you want up to half of the kingdom. And she just says, I want you to come back tomorrow for another supper club. And I used to think she lost her nerve here. VeggieTales told us that she lost her nerve here. But she was following a protocol of that time, which is you start with something small and then you go big or go home. But as a wife, I also think something else is going on here. If I want to get my husband's attention, I say, I need to talk to you about something later. Not now. Now's not a good time. And so what I've done is just created fear. I've just created some suspense, perhaps given him the nervous belly. So she's created some suspense here. I want to talk to you about something later. So come back tomorrow for a second banquet. So at the second banquet, it said it was a banquet of wine. And this is what I was saying earlier. I think Xerxes had no idea what was going on in his kingdom because he kept going to banquets of wine. It's hard to know what's going on, and it's hard to know what your second in command is doing with your signet ring when you are not sober. So at this second banquet, Esther, she calls out Haman's plan and says, this vile man, this evil Hayman, has sentenced my people to die. And Xerxes is furious. He had no idea. I don't know what he was doing, but he had no idea. And she asks the king, spare my life and spare my people's lives. He grants her request, and then Hayman meets the violent end that he had planned for Mordecai. It was something that his groomsmen told him to do. It was kind of a little impalement situation. I wish that I had not done a lot of research on this, but I'm not going to tell you anything gross, but it just sounds uncomfortable, what happened to Hayman, his end. It really hurt my spirit when I read it. So Mordecai, he was promoted after that to second in command, and the story ends with, he worked for the good of his people, and he spoke up for the welfare of all the Jews. All because this young lady, who was not called, was not really even supposed to be there, she spoke up and she showed up anyway. Her entire nation was saved. Isn't that amazing? When we read stories in the Old Testament, maybe we don't understand all of the Middle Eastern tradition, the historical background, or the theology. We can always ask ourselves, where do I see the wisdom here? And where do I see God's hand? The first thing that I saw Was that Vashti standing her ground? No. No. It paved the way and it set Esther up for when she stood her ground. Yes. And if I die, I die. One of them paved the way for the other. Who paved your way? I've thought about that all week. Who paved your way? Who can you set up? Secondly, as I was reading this story over and over, it hit me that dirty politics are just always going to be a thing. Aren't we tired? Aren't we tired of that? We are. But it's always been an issue. There's always going to be darkness in politics. There's always going to be people in power who destroy instead of build. And please understand, I am not making a statement. I'm just saying that politics as a whole bum me out. Hayman is always going to be there. He's always going to be there in some form or another, destroying instead of building. But what we see in Esther's story is that God is sovereign in dark and hopeless situations, and he always sends a remnant to rise up in the oppression, doesn't he? He always sends somebody. Thanks, babe. Third, we're going to see over and over in this story, and I encourage you to read it. I've had to do more of a synopsis in this situation because it's a long story, but I encourage you to read it this week. You're going to see over and over the destruction that comes from listening to foolish counsel. And you're going to see the life-saving wisdom of listening to good counsel. If we surround ourselves with the groomsmen, if we surround ourselves with yes men that never call us out, it's going to lead to destruction. Iron sharpening iron, that's what we're called to. And I just want to be honest, wise counsel doesn't always feel good, does it? I was floored last week when Pastor Jay talked about the Excel spreadsheet that his mentor makes him keep of his struggles. Do you guys want to know what they were? Don't act like you're better than me. Ooh, I wonder what's on his list. That's exciting. Sounds scandalous. No, it's none of our business. It's none of our beeswax. But I thought, wow, what an incredible thing that our leader is willing to hold himself that accountable. We've all seen churches where that's not done. And it's devastating, isn't it? So who's your counsel? Who's your counsel? Have you put people around your life that can call you out? I told Erin, she's ministering next week. I told her I don't want to make an Excel spreadsheet, but you have the right at any time to call me out. Surround yourself by people that not only have your back and love you, because that's important. You can't be the person always calling somebody out. Nobody likes that person either. But you also have to surround yourself with the people that have your back and can call you out when you get out there. So who do you have in your inner circle that's speaking life-giving truth in your life? Just a little something uncomfortable to think about this week. You're welcome. So fourth and final, I haven't been called. I haven't been called. That's what Queen Esther said. I haven't been called. She could have washed her hands of it. She didn't have to do what she did at that time. She didn't have to. So what happened between I haven't been called and yes, if I die, I die, was that Mordecai called her out and he called her to step up, and she made a choice. She made a brave choice, and she chose to be humble enough to listen to her counsel. And look what happened. So the last bit, and I hope this blesses you, someone just call it Sarah Gets in Your Business for just a little bit. I love you. Please invite me to your parties. How many times have we said that to ourselves or said that to God? I haven't been called. How many times have we said that? I don't have the right training. I'm not smart enough. I did dumb things in my past, so I can't do this. If you've done dumb things in your past, get in line. I'm not brave enough. I'm not smart enough. Or a very toxic one that I have had to confront in my own life is this isn't my fight. this isn't my fight. If a people are oppressed and a people are hurting, church, it is our fight. It's our fight. Love you. Now, we're all called to love God with all of our heart, our soul, and our mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. We are called to love. We are a people called to love. But there are specific things. The mom finger's about to come out, by the way. There are specific things that you are called on this earth to do. If you don't know what they are, talk to your Creator about it. I find him very chatty. Talk to him about it. Be willing and open to partner with him and what he has for you. Friends, we weren't born at the wrong time. We weren't born at the wrong place. You're just the person that we need for a time like this. Amen? All right, I want to pray over you. Father, I thank you for this time. I thank you for my brothers and sisters. Rise us up. Raise us up, Lord, for such a time as this. Amen. All right, benediction. May you be blessed with hope when it feels hopeless. May you be blessed with holy wisdom and godly counsel and be humble enough to receive it. May you be blessed with strength to stand in honor and integrity. And may you be a people for such a time as this. I love you guys. Thank you.